She looked down under her legs. There was a bird there, its body twisted and hurt. It tried in vain to AP its wings, then paused, its panicked eyes meeting hers. She bent down and stroked the bird's wing. The bird shuddered away from her, apping its wings again. Yet its movements were feebler now. It was dying. She held her hands gently around the bird to calm it. In her grasp, it gave out its last breath. She felt the oppression of loss, the cruel relentlessness of life and death. The rain began to fall. She had to go. The rain turned quickly to a downpour. Rough it, she saw a man walking toward her, and stood up straight, light again inside. He walked closer, then continued by her without stopping. It wasn't him. In the lobby of her building, she met Manuel, who took her drenched coat and shook it off. Too depressed even to respond to his cheerful banter, she got in the elevator and leaned heavily against the side, spent. The door began to close behind her. The door jolted open, stopped by a reaching arm. She could feel him right away, practically smell him, and then Lawrence stepped past the doors and into the elevator. A burst of fear ran through her, accompanied by excitement. Without a word, Lawrence kissed her while the doors closed. Sarah's hesitation at his touch. As his tongue found hers, her anger dissipated, and she felt again that she was his. She felt excitement run through her body, hot within the chill of their wet clothes. She had to have him. The days she'd spent without him forgotten in the rush of reunion. The elevator doors opened, and Sarah guided Lawrence to her door, fumbling for her keys. Thank God Eric was away. He couldn't keep his hands off of her. Reluctantly, she pulled away, catching her breath. "Where were you?" she whispered. "I'm sorry," he whispered back. "I needed time." "I won't leave again, Sarah." "Not unless you want me to." He hesitated at the door. "I don't want you to," she admitted. Her eyes went to the door, then found his again. They were inside in a moment, kissing again as she kicked the door shut behind them. She unbuttoned his wet shirt as his hands sought out the edges of her own soaking clothes. She thought she'd never experienced such intensity before. She didn't even care how he had found out where she lived. None of it mattered to her. She was just thrilled to see him. She looked deeply into his mesmerizing eyes, caressed his strong chest. He pulled off the last of her clothes and stood looking at her. To her amazement, she wasn't ashamed of her less than perfect body and its so tufts, or her age. In his gaze, she knew she was beautiful. She also knew there was no turning back from this moment. She would be an adulteress, a thing she had despised and vilified. But in that gaze, even that was transformed. In that gaze, she knew she no longer cared. He slowly pulled down her panties and kissed her between her legs. She moaned softly as he licked faster, exploring her with his hands and mouth. He stood up and looked her in the eyes, then pushed her against the wall, kissing her all over. He took her firm nipples into his mouth and devoured them. A few moments later, they slid to the floor together, unable to wait any longer. He slowly pressed into her, and she moaned softly, relishing each thrust. Her thoughts of guilt and loss were forgotten. She let her body go, surrendering to his touch, and they moved as one until they came together in a climax that felt as though it shook her every cell. A few moments later, they made their way to her bed, tracing one another's bodies with their hands. It was jarring to have a different man's body occupying it, a different man's face. Lawrence was bigger than Eric, but his face was softer and more round. She lay for a while, looking into his smoky blue eyes before she spoke. "I've never done this before," she said quietly. She realized she wanted him again. Was this what obsession felt like? She was afraid, startled by the intensity of her own feeling. "What is it?" he asked, as though reading her mind. "Nothing," she said, furrowing her brow. "It's just that now you know me." Mystery's over, at least part of it. She smiled apologetically at him. He didn't answer.